Today I want to talk about how you can write an incredible protagonist in your manga, comic, or light novel. My first tip is give them a powerful goal with high stakes. So what I really mean by this is that when you're creating a good protagonist and you want to give them a really important goal, it's also important to combine that goal with high stakes to make the goal more important. So one thing that's really important when creating a protagonist and giving them a goal in the story is remembering that usually the protagonist's goal will also be the main goal of the story, or these two goals will go hand in hand. So by solving the main story goal, the protagonist's goal should also be resolved. Now, within this as well, it's important to ensure that this goal is so important to your protagonist that they cannot fail, because if they fail, there will be some sort of dire consequence. For example, if the protagonist's main goal is to stop a really bad villain, maybe the villain's goal is to take over the world in your character's story. And so if your protagonist fails to stop the villain, there would be really dire consequences in the scheme of the entire world. So basically, in this example, the entire world is at stake. Or in another example, someone who is really important to your protagonist might have been taken by the villain, or something really bad might happen to this person they care about. And if your protagonist fails in their goal, it may mean losing this person they really care about. It could even directly involve the protagonist. Maybe if your protagonist doesn't succeed, it will cost the life of your protagonist. So in following this tip, you really need to understand your protagonist that there are two main aspects to their goal setting that you really need to think about. You need to think about what their main goal is over the course of your book, and you also need to think about what will happen if they don't successfully achieve this goal. My second tip is build their character arc over the story. Give them character stages and character development. The protagonist in your story will be the character that goes through the most development over the book. From the beginning of the story to the end of the story, the protagonist should be vastly changed, and there should be many incidents over the story that help to really show this character growth. Now, by character growth, I don't necessarily mean that your character needs to grow up over the course of the story. This can happen, of course, especially if you're writing a long-running series, but what I really mean by this is that as your character goes through the events in the story, they should learn new things and be changed as a result of those events. So when you are creating your protagonist, you need to understand what growth stages they need to experience in order to get to the end point of your book where they become the character that they need to be. So in doing this, you need to create a strong character arc or multiple arcs. And so in this part, I want to talk about creating character growth stages and how you can really implement this into your book. When you're giving your character development arcs, I recommend creating 5 to 6 at the most, but this really depends on how long your series is and how many chapters or volumes you are going to be creating. From there, understand where your character is at the start of your book, and then understand where they are by the end of your book. At the beginning, maybe your protagonist is a bit nervous or unsure of their actions, and they don't really know what decisions they need to take. By the end of your book, your protagonist needs to be a particular type of character. Maybe they're much stronger than they were before and they understand things a lot better. From there, you need to fill in the gaps and consider what character arcs need to happen to get them from the beginning to the end. And these are character arcs that go alongside the story. For example, if you were writing your story like an RPG, and you might have the main quest in the story, these are kind of like sub-quests in the story. These are side events that happen to give extra experience points, basically. In each character stage, they need to have a kind of mini goal that they must fulfill before they can gain the experience they need to move on to the next stage. Every time your protagonist achieves something or achieves these mini goals, they should change in some sort of way. My third tip is focus on one main aspect of their personality. While characters are made up of multiple personality aspects, you need to focus on a main aspect when you're developing your protagonist. And while there may be other traits that make up their character, focusing in on one main trait will really help you to hone into what makes this character the character they are in your book. And this is a much easier way for you to understand who this character is so you can develop them a lot more easily. For example, your protagonist might be the kind of person who is very kind and accepting of the other people around them. Or they might be boldly confident to the point of getting into difficult situations without thinking them through first. Or your protagonist might be someone who might be more stubborn or even cruel. And as I mentioned, your protagonist should have other traits. Understanding what their main personality is a good way to simplify the process so you can better understand exactly who your protagonist is so you can write them a lot better in your manga, comic, or light novel. My fourth tip is show their main moral throughout the story. Your protagonist will go by their morals, so it's important to keep their morals and their personal beliefs in mind when you're trying to understand what decisions your protagonist needs to make next. If your protagonist is at a point in your manga or your novel where they aren't sure where to go next, it's important to consider what your protagonist believes in and how this can affect their decision making. Is your protagonist the kind of person who is just determined to help the people around them? Or are they someone who wants adventure and they want to discover new things? Maybe they're the kind of character who wants to learn something that no one else has, or do something that no one else has done. Their moral is what your protagonist believes the most, and this belief will guide them through the story you're creating. This is why with many protagonists in anime or manga, you'll usually see that their moral is at the forefront of their character. And when you see this character, you will be able to understand that their moral is what they really live by, and it's really how they make the decisions throughout the story. My fifth tip is give them a strong internal and external conflict. When you want to develop a powerful protagonist, it's important to not only consider what is happening outside of their character, but also their own internal world, their thoughts and their feelings and their perspective of the world around them. And this is where internal and external conflicts come into play. External conflict is what is happening outside of your main protagonist. So these might be fights, arguments, battles, and conflicts. They are things outside of your protagonist's control. And these are conflicts because they stop your protagonist from being able to continue proceeding and being able to fulfill their goal. So these are essentially physical obstacles in your story that prevent your character from moving forward until they deal with this external conflict. Now, along with the external conflicts, there are also internal conflicts. And the internal conflicts, I think, are one of the most important parts of character development, which is why I talk about it so much on my channel. I really believe that creating a character with balanced external and internal conflicts is a great way to really enhance your character creation. So what is internal conflict? The internal conflict is the conflict that is happening in your protagonist's mind. So this is their own self-esteem, their own thoughts, their own perspective, and the way they might judge themselves or the way they judge others. This can also be a kind of obstacle in your story because if your protagonist has a particular internal conflict, it will change the way they make decisions and the way they take action. If they are uncertain about the people around them or they are untrusting, it may change the way they work with those characters. Or if your protagonist has a bit of low self-esteem and they are unsure of what they should decide to do next, then it may change the way that your protagonist makes decisions in your book. So it's important that if you want to create a well-balanced protagonist, you need to balance these aspects and understand what happens in their internal world that may prevent them from taking action when it matters the most in your story. My sixth tip is ensure that their quest takes them on a journey. Now, understand in this tip that I'm not necessarily talking about your character traveling across the world, although it can mean that. But basically, this tip means different things depending on the type of genre you're writing. So whatever the journey means for your protagonist and what takes them from the beginning of your story to the end of the story, that's really what you need to focus on. Maybe for your character, the journey is more about them learning more about themselves and understanding the people around them better. So as you look over your story and you consider what your protagonist needs to do to really drive that story, consider how your protagonist may change from the beginning to the end of your book. And that's a great way to develop a compelling protagonist that will really shine throughout your manga, comic, or light novel. By the way, if you want to see an extended version of this, I've just released a new course all about how to write incredible protagonists in your manga or light novel. They're actually separate courses, so I have one about manga creation and I have one about light novel creation, depending on the type of project that you're creating. It contains a variety of lessons all about how to craft an incredible protagonist for any story that you are creating. Both courses are only $9.99 each, and I'd love to have you join me on this creative writing journey. So thank you so much for watching my video today, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of protagonist you're creating for your story because I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next video. Bye!